Hello and welcome to the User Community Virtual Series. My name is Tim Huckabee, and I'm excited today because my good friend Sebastian Holst is here. Sebastian, thanks so much for coming.
It is my pleasure, Tim. Thanks.
Now, your company is PreEmptive. You guys have provided the plumbing, so to speak, for Windows Phone 7 apps. You do instrumentation, and you do the analytics on top of it.
That's right.
You've got the fancy CMO title, but you're also a little technical, aren't you?
In my spare time, I
know
play
you
a little.
Are. All right. So why don't you talk about a little bit about what you're going to show us today?
Sure. Well, you know, what I did was I did write my own app, and in fact, even though my title is CMO, the development tools and the platform for Windows Phone 7 is so easy, even a CMO can do it. So this is, in fact, an app that I wrote on my own, and of course, I, as the saying goes, eat my own dog food, so I use the analytics and instrumentation. And so what I'd like to show you today is how I use instrumentation, not just to measure user patterns and practices or even software quality and user experience, but to actually drill down and analyze how advertising is being used, and so I can fine-tune it to better monetize my apps.
Outstanding. Why don't you show us?
Awesome. So one thing, just as a resource, is I have a blog, applications are people too, and there in this particular entry, I detail in a lot more, with a lot more precision that I can go in here. So I would encourage people to take a look, and I'll just sort of start with the punchline, which is very quickly, I was able to, with no coding in fact, to measure and validate the ad impression volume across all of my applications. I was then able to do click-through rates, so to correlate, obviously, impressions with click-throughs, again, by application, to drill deeper, to now break it out by country, so what cultures are more likely to click through than others, and then to do ratios, so which are certain cultures more likely, more open to the ads that are being served inside my application than others, and then I could actually drill down into carriers, and then as it reflected on the design of my application, I'm actually able to see where click-throughs on a particular page are more likely to happen. So for example, there's video in my application. And it turns out when somebody is watching a video, they're less likely to click on an ad than they are when they're reading text. So even though you might think, oh, they spend minutes on this particular page, that's a great place for ads. Well, in point of fact, when I'm watching a video, from a mental point of view, I'm not looking at anything else. So it's actually a poor place to put ads. So there's a number of these types of conclusions and recommendations. And so what I'm going to do is show you how I got all this so the viewers can do this for themselves.
And I think the interesting point is that you did all this in Visual Studio with the preemptive tools.
That's right.
Without writing a lick of code.
That's correct.
Beautiful.
Absolutely right. So the first thing somebody's going to want to do is get the code. So all you have to do is go to preemptive.com/Windows Phone 7. You fill out these simple, very easy text fields, and you will get your credentials immediately. So within minutes, you'll have your code, you download the software, plugs right into Visual Studio, and once you're done with that, in fact, I did write a little piece of exaggeration to get a little bit of extra data. I wrote one tiny method. So here's my yoga app, a particular page, and what I did was I set up event handlers for when I have a new ad, when I have an error. This actually turns out to be quite important in serving the ad, and when somebody clicks through. And regardless of what event I want to track, I can do this. But what I did was I wrote one almost, let's call it a dummy method. And if I go to the bottom here, I can show it to you. And it is called what pose when. And all it does is it takes two strings and does nothing else, because that's what I want to instrument. The runtime intelligence can instrument any method and grab any parameter. So I wrote a dummy method, and anything I want to capture, in addition to the standard sessions, unique users, durations, all the standard kind of baseline analytics, I want some custom data. So I'm going to pass it a string, and that turns into custom data. So that's it. So if you see the event handlers that I just pointed to, all I do is I call what pose when, I say the page that the ad occurred on, and in this case, ad engaged. Somebody clicked on an ad. That's the only code I wrote, specific for the analytics.
Outstanding.
Then I jumped to Obfuscator, and all I have to do with Obfuscator is point at my Zap file, so we'll take the Zap as input, and I jump to the Instrumentation tab, and all I have to do is add two attributes, define the application, and define my organization. And I get that information when I get my credentials. And then I jump down to the one method that I care about, and that was here. And I've what, pose, when. And you see I've added one custom attribute. And to add one, I just right-click it. I say Add Attribute. And all I had to do was put an asterisk in the method arguments. That tells runtime intelligence, grab anything that's passed to it.
Okay.
And I give it a name, what, pose, when. I point it at my Zap file. I hit the play button. It consumes the Zap, injects the analytics, and I get the same Zap back, no additional artifacts, nothing else. And that's what I submit to the marketplace. And then I can just jump here to the Runtime Intelligence portal. I can see overall activity. I can drill features. I can actually look at custom data. And so if I click on the what, pose, when feature, it's actually going to load up the values that it passed. I can sort by relative activity. So I can see in the time period that I selected, 13,000 ads were served. I can drill down. I can see of those 13,000, 1,100 times there was an error. So that tells me that I might want to put some logic behind when that event occurs. But I can also tell when ads are clicked on, ad engaged. But that's not where it gets interesting. What I can also do is go to the raw message data, and that allows me to extract all of this data in a spreadsheet, and I can create a pivot table.
If you know how to use Excel.
If you know how to use Excel, and that's true. Again, marketing people know how to do that.
Okay.
So if I jump to my spreadsheet, I just loaded this up, and this is the raw data. And I won't. They're all labeled. It's fairly intuitive. You get message IDs, the application name, and then what I did. One of the things we grab is the IP location of the tower. So it's not personally identifiable, but it allows me to to identify the culture. And so to give you some examples, here's a pivot table that just counted ad impressions by app. And that's where I got that graph.
Outstanding.
Click through is the other method. And what I was able to do is then do it by culture, by feature. This is where I identified the carrier.
Awesome.
So I was able to drill down and identify all of that information with no programming, a little bit of Excel know-how, a little pivot table. It's still a wizard.
Hey, that's incredible. That's awesome.
So that's it.
Thank you so much for showing us this today, and thanks for coming.
Well, thanks. My pleasure.
And thank you guys for watching.